The entire room went silent the moment her mother-in-law's palm cracked across her cheek, right there in the middle of her own wedding dinner, in front of 100 guests, in front of the cameras, and all because she refused to sign one single piece of paper, a deed that didn't even have her husband's name on it 5 minutes ago. Serena didn't cry. She just stood there, shaking, staring at the woman who swore she only wanted the family to be protected. But everyone at that table knew this slap wasn't about love. It was about control, power, and something much bigger that Serena was never supposed to discover. Before we get any deeper into this mess, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from and the time right now, because I need to know who's up with me tonight following this story. And drop a comment. What would you do if this happened at your wedding? Because trust me, this night is about to get way worse. Serena didn't move at first. Her cheek burned, but the shock hit harder than the slap itself. The kind of shock that freezes your breath in your throat and makes time slow down. The string quartet stopped mid-note. A fork dropped somewhere near the head table. Guests leaned forward like they weren't sure if this was real or some kind of twisted performance. It was real. Serena's fingers twitched at her side. She wasn't the kind of woman who caused scenes. She'd always been calm, almost too calm, but even she couldn't pretend her face hadn't just been used to make a point she never agreed to. Diane Walker stood tall in front of her, perfectly pressed silver dress, pearls tight against her throat, eyes cold enough to freeze the room twice over. You could tell she expected Serena to crumble, to apologize, to give in. Diane was the type of woman who lived on dominance, the type who believed that if she raised her voice, the world would fall in line. But Serena didn't bend. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. She tasted champagne and blood. Her wedding dress hugged her ribs so tight she felt like she was breathing through a straw. This was supposed to be the happiest night of her life, but it felt like she was standing in the center of a storm she never saw coming. Jordan was seated only an arm's length away, but he didn't stand. He didn't reach for her. He didn't say her name. He froze, like he couldn't decide which way to run, like saving his new wife might cost him something he wasn't willing to lose. People watched him, waiting, judging, seeing more than he realized. Serena finally blinked, and her voice came out low, barely above a whisper. "I said no, Diane." It should have been enough. A boundary said plainly, a woman defending what she built with her own hands. But Diane leaned in, her perfume sharp and suffocating, her tone dripping with a sweetness that fooled no one. "You will not embarrass this family," she said quietly. "Not tonight." Serena's jaw tightened. "I'm not signing anything." Diane exhaled like she'd been personally insulted by oxygen existing. She snatched the paperwork from the chair and waved it in the air like a flag signaling war. "This isn't complicated," Diane hissed. "Adding Jordan's name to your house is normal. It's what a real wife does. Unless," she glanced Serena up and down, "you have something to hide." A murmur rolled across the room. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Phones hovered, recording behind half-lowered napkins. Serena saw everything, friends shrinking back, relatives whispering, strangers feeding off the drama like it was dessert. She felt small, but not weak. Her voice steadied. "I'm not giving anyone control over the only thing that's ever been mine." The air cracked again, this time without a slap, just tension tightening like threads across the room. Jordan finally rose, but too slowly, like he had to think about every muscle. "Mom, let's not do this right now." Diane didn't even look at him. "Sit down, Jordan. This is between us women." Serena almost laughed from disbelief. Women? Diane didn't see her as one. She saw her as a problem to fix, a piece to move, a threat. Her mind ran back to earlier moments that suddenly made too much sense. Diane's constant questions about property taxes, the surprise visits, the innocent comments about family assets. Serena ignored them, wanting peace, wanting marriage, wanting Jordan, but denial only works until the slap makes it impossible to pretend anymore. Serena stepped back, needing space, needing breath. The candlelight flickered over her skin, making her look softer than she felt. Inside, something was cracking open, and it wasn't going to be put back quietly. "Everyone, please, just give us a minute," Jordan finally said, voice breaking in the middle like his courage couldn't carry the whole sentence. But no one moved. 100 eyes stayed glued to them, hungry for the next moment. Diane lowered her voice, but not her pride. "You should have signed the deed when I asked. You pushed me to this." Serena stared at her, long and steady. "No one pushed you to hit me." For a moment, Diane faltered, just a flicker. Then she straightened her spine, reclaiming her arrogance. Serena lifted her chin. "You want access to my house because you think I don't deserve to own something without your son attached to it." Diane's lips curled. A married woman isn't separate from her husband. "And a mother," Serena replied quietly, "shouldn't be this involved." Whispers erupted again. Jordan rubbed his forehead like he wished he could disappear. Serena took another step back until her fingers brushed the back of her chair. Something stiff and folded was tucked there. She pulled it out slowly. The deed. The copy Diane brought. But as she flipped it over, her stomach dropped. There was a page she'd never seen before. A page without her signature. A page naming someone she didn't expect. Someone who had no reason to be involved. Her breath caught, and in that split second, with her cheeks still stinging, with her husband silent, with Diane staring her down, Serena realized something. This slap wasn't a moment of rage. It was a cover for a much bigger lie. A lie Diane never thought she'd uncover. A lie that would tear open everything tonight. A lie sitting right there on the back of that folded page. And the night wasn't even close to over. 6 months earlier, Serena Morris stood on the porch of the little 2-bedroom house she'd spent 4 years fighting to buy. Morning sun spilled across the quiet street in Decatur, warming the fresh paint she'd rolled onto the siding by herself. It wasn't a mansion, but it was hers, the first thing in her life that never threatened to disappear. She locked the door behind her, listening to the familiar click that always made her feel safe. She grew up with nothing stable, bounced between relatives, slept on couches, worked through college while juggling 2 jobs. When she stared at this house, she saw every late shift, every tear, every sacrifice. She promised herself no one would ever take it from her. That promise was still true back then. She walked down the steps, keys between her fingers, already running late for work. Serena taught art classes at a community center, nothing fancy, but she loved it. Kids with paint-stained fingers, single mums trying to reclaim hobbies, retired veterans learning to sketch flowers. It made sense to her in a way life rarely did. Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A deep voice, smooth and warm like he wasn't capable of rushing anything, came through. "Hi, is this Serena Morris?" "Yes," she kept moving toward her car. "This is Jordan Walker. We met at the gallery opening last night. You helped me figure out why that landscape piece looked so empty." Serena paused beside her car door. She remembered. The tall guy in the navy blazer, the one who looked expensive but genuinely listened when she spoke. He'd stood beside her at the exhibit, asking thoughtful questions about brushstrokes and color emotion. She thought it was small talk, polite interest at best. She didn't expect him to call. "Oh," she said, trying not to sound surprised. "Yeah, hi. I was wondering," he continued, "if you'd like to get coffee today? Or another day that works for you. No pressure." Serena smiled despite herself. She hadn't dated in months, not out of fear, just exhaustion. But something about Jordan had felt different. Calm, curious, not performative. She glanced at her car's dusty hood, the uneven driveway, the slightly faded mailbox. Today might be hard. I've got a long shift." There was a pause. "What if I pick you up after? We could get a late dinner, just talk." She shouldn't have said yes. She had every reason to keep her distance. She barely trusted people who'd known her for years, let alone a man she met once. But she felt something, a tug, quiet and sincere. "Okay," she said softly. "Dinner sounds good." She didn't know that moment would unravel everything later. That night, Jordan pulled up in a clean charcoal SUV. Not flashy, but clearly expensive. He stepped out with a nervous smile that made him look younger than he was. Serena liked that. Humility wasn't common in men who came from wealth, and something about his careful posture said he wasn't trying to impress her, just trying not to mess up. They ate at a small bistro near Midtown, the kind with soft jazz and dim lighting. Jordan talked about growing up in Alpharetta, about wanting to step out of his family's shadow. He confessed he admired people who built their own paths, people like her. Serena didn't share much. She never did on first dates. But he made her laugh. He made her curious. He made her feel seen in a way that wasn't romantic yet. More like recognition. He walked her to her door afterward, hands in his pockets, hesitant. "I had a great time," he said. "Me too." "Can I see you again?" Serena looked up at him. Really looked. His eyes were gentle, tired, lonely in a way that didn't scream desperation, more like someone who'd been trained not to need anyone, but wanted to anyway. "Yes," she said, and that yes became another yes, and another, until dinners became a routine, then weekends, then inside jokes that belonged only to them. But behind every golden moment, there were shadows she didn't want to acknowledge, little comments that slipped out of Jordan's mouth. Mentions of his mother's expectations, of the Walker family's reputation, of how he needed someone who could fit in. Serena brushed those comments aside. Love had a way of smoothing over the sharp edges you didn't want to face. One evening, 2 months into dating, Jordan surprised her with wine and a picnic blanket on the living room floor. The night was soft, easy, one of those rare moments when the world felt quiet. As he leaned into her shoulder, he spoke lightly, almost teasing. "You know, you're the only woman I've dated. My mother can't research properly." Serena laughed, thinking he meant her social media settings, but his tone shifted. "No, I mean it. She likes knowing everything about people, assets, job history, background. It's her thing." Serena lowered her glass. "That's intense," he nodded. "She's intense." She didn't know then that Diane already had her full name written on a yellow legal pad, already had someone digging into public records, already knew about the house before Serena ever mentioned it. And she definitely didn't know Diane told someone at a charity event, "My son finally found a girl with something to offer." Serena believed she was building a love story. Diane believed she found an opportunity. The storm that hit on the wedding night didn't start at the altar. It started 6 months earlier, when a woman who fought for every brick of her house said yes to a man whose family believed everything, including people, could be owned. And Serena's yes was the first thing they planned to take. The first time Serena met Diane Walker, she didn't feel threatened. Annoyed, maybe, uncomfortable, sure, but not threatened. That changed quickly. It was a bright Saturday morning, 2 months into Serena and Jordan's relationship. Jordan suggested brunch at the Northwood Country Club, the kind of place where the napkins were cloth. The omelets were $30, and the walls carried more history than any textbook. Serena didn't belong there, but she tried to blend in. A soft blush dress, a neat bun, simple jewelry. She looked polished, but her pulse quickened as soon as they walked in. Diane was already seated at a corner table, perfectly poised with a cup of tea she didn't seem to be drinking. She wore pearls too white to be real, and a smile too stiff to be kind. Jordan kissed his mother's cheek. "Mum, this is Serena." Diane looked her up and down like she was appraising a piece of furniture. "So," she said, "this is the young woman you've been so busy with." Serena forced a polite smile. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Walker." "Diane," she corrected, even though she didn't mean it. They sat. A waiter appeared instantly, as if Diane had a button that summoned people. Jordan ordered pancakes. Serena asked for coffee. Diane didn't look at a menu. She already knew what she wanted. "So, Serena," Diane began, folding her hands, "where do you live?" Serena didn't think much of it. "Decatur." "Oh," Diane replied lightly, like the word tasted sour. "That's cozy, cozy, the kind of word rich people used when they meant too small." Serena kept her smile. "I like it." "Yes, well," Diane continued, "Jordan has always preferred more established neighborhoods." Jordan stiffened. "Mom," Diane didn't let him finish. "Tell me, dear, do you rent?" Serena hesitated, not because she was embarrassed, but because the question felt pointed. "I own," she said. Diane raised an eyebrow. "You own?" "Yes." "At your age?" Jordan's jaw clenched. "Mom." Diane waved a hand. "Oh, I'm just surprised. It's not common these days." Then, too casually, "And you purchased it alone?" "Yes," Serena answered, starting to feel the edges of something cold creeping in. What's your mortgage like? Fixed or adjustable? Jordan rubbed his forehead. Mum, please. What? Diane said innocently. I'm just curious. These are responsible questions. Marriage is a financial partnership. Serena wasn't marrying anyone. They weren't even engaged. But Diane spoke like the wedding was already paid for and planned. It's a fixed-rate mortgage, Serena replied carefully. I'm comfortable with it. And the deed? Diane pressed. Is it just your name? Serena's stomach tightened. What kind of mother asked a stranger about the deed to their house? Yes, she said slowly. It's mine. Diane exhaled through her nose, using a tight little smile to cover her disappointment. How independent of you. The waiter returned with their food, but the brunch was already ruined. Serena picked at her meal while Diane continued lobbing little darts disguised as conversation. Do you plan to stay in that house long term? Does the neighborhood feel safe? Any issues with resale value? Have you considered joint ownership someday? Each question landed heavier than the last. By the time the plates were cleared, Serena felt drained. Jordan apologized the moment they reached the parking lot. She's just like that. It's nothing personal. Serena didn't believe that. Nothing about Diane felt random. But she let it go, because she wanted to believe in Jordan more than she feared Diane. Later that night, as Serena tossed her purse on the couch, something slipped out and fluttered to the floor. A folded paper. Not hers. She picked it up, expecting a receipt or napkin from lunch. Instead, it was a printout, her full property record, her address, her loan details, her purchase history. She stared at it, breath slowing. Diane must have slipped it into her bag when she went to fix her lipstick at the table. Serena sank onto the couch, the house suddenly too quiet, the walls too close. For the first time, she felt a whisper of fear, not loud enough to panic, but sharp enough to warn her. Diane's questions weren't curiosity. They were reconnaissance, information gathering, preparation. Serena folded the paper and shoved it deep into a drawer, telling herself she was overreacting, that Diane was just protective, that she was imagining the intention behind those pearl-hard eyes. But deep down, a small voice whispered the truth she didn't want to face. Diane Walker didn't want to know her. She wanted to own her. And the house was the first place she planned to start. Despite the warning signs, Serena stayed. Not because she was naive, not because she needed anyone, but because Jordan made the world soften in ways she didn't expect. He showed up with takeout after her long shifts. He listened when she talked about her students. He watched her paint like it was something sacred. And every time he smiled, something inside her loosened, the part of her that always braced for disappointment. Diane hovered like a shadow Serena didn't want to acknowledge, but when it was just her and Jordan, it was easy to forget the rest of the world existed. One night, after a long week, Jordan invited her over to his condo in Midtown Atlanta. Serena wasn't used to luxury, but Jordan's place had a simplicity she liked. Clean lines, warm lighting, no unnecessary flash. She could tell he decorated it himself, not with money, but with intention. They cooked together, laughed when the pasta boiled over, turned the music too loud, and spilled wine on the counter. For a moment, Serena forgot everything except him. When they finally settled on the couch, Jordan rested his head on her shoulder, fingers tracing lazy circles on her hand. You're different, he murmured. Serena smiled. Different how? Different from the world I grew up in. He paused. My family. They expect certain things, certain types of people, certain traditions. Serena tensed, remembering Diane's questions like needles under her skin. Is that a problem? She asked quietly. No, he said quickly. No. You're exactly what I've been looking for. You're real. He lifted her hand to his lips. You make me feel grounded. Serena breathed out, letting the tension ease. For a while, they sat in silence, the kind that feels like a conversation on its own. Jordan pulled back slightly, searching her eyes, his voice lowered, gentler. I want to build a life with you, Serena. Her heart skipped, not in fear, in hope. She didn't respond right away, but he didn't rush her. He never did. Instead, he stood and walked to a shelf, pulling out a small sketchbook. He handed it to her, almost shy. What's this? She asked. Open it. Serena flipped it open and froze. Inside were charcoal sketches, portraits of her laughing, painting, talking. One where she was reading on her porch. One where she slept on the couch with a blanket half covering her, all drawn from memory. "You drew these," she whispered. He nodded, cheeks flushing. "I like the way you look at the world. I wanted to capture it." She felt her chest tighten. People had admired her, people had wanted her, but no one had seen her like this. Not this way, not this softly. She leaned in and kissed him, slow, deep, certain. That night, Jordan became the thing she allowed herself to want. Not just tolerate. Weeks passed. Their routines blended, their weekends overlapped. They cooked more dinners, took more walks, shared more secrets. Serena found herself imagining future things, holidays, children, growing old in the house she fought for. And Jordan, he seemed sincere, honest, devoted. But devotion has cracks, and the first one appeared on a quiet Wednesday night. They were lying on Serena's couch, watching a movie, when Jordan casually rested his hand on her stomach and said, almost like a passing thought, "You know, when we get married, we'll probably need a bigger place." Serena laughed. "Who said anything about kids soon?" He chuckled. "You never know." Then lightly, "I just hope you're okay with us figuring out everything together. Finances, assets, all the married stuff." Serena shifted. The word assets didn't sit right. "We'll talk about everything," she said. "But I've worked too hard for this house to make rash decisions." Jordan nodded. Of course. No pressure. But pressure arrived anyway, in the form of small comments that multiplied like cracks in glass. "Joint ownership strengthens marriages." "My dad added my mum to everything right after their wedding." "Married people share what they have. You shouldn't have to carry everything alone." They weren't demands, but they landed heavy. Serena pushed them aside, hoping they were harmless, hoping he wasn't anything like his mother, hoping love was enough to silence the discomfort curling in her chest. One night, as they lay together after dinner, Jordan brushed a hand through her hair and whispered something that should have been sweet, but didn't feel sweet at all. "I can't wait until our lives are completely tied together." Serena stared at the ceiling long after he fell asleep, feeling something she didn't have the courage to name. Diane's voice from that first brunch echoed in her head. Marriage is a financial partnership. Jordan seemed nothing like her, until sometimes he did. Still, Serena told herself to trust him. Love complicates everything, and she didn't know yet that some complications were already unfolding behind her back. In quiet, calculated conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. Within a few weeks, the next crack appeared, much deeper, and it came from Diane. Again. The engagement happened faster than Serena expected. A sunset rooftop dinner, a soft speech, a ring that sparkled too brightly for her calm, practical taste. But she said yes. Not because of the ring, because of the man she thought she understood. At first, Serena imagined a small wedding. Something simple, intimate, a ceremony in a park or a garden. Maybe 20 people, maybe 30. Something that felt like them. But the moment Diane heard the word engaged, her entire world shifted into motion. Within 1 week, Serena found herself sitting in Diane's living room, a sprawling estate in Alpharetta, where every piece of furniture looked like it had been ironed into place. The carpet was so soft it swallowed your footsteps, and the air smelled like lemon polish and expectation. Diane had 3 wedding binders open before Serena even sat. "So," Diane said, her voice smooth and managerial, "I took the liberty of booking a venue tour at the Sterling in Buckhead. They host CEOs, politicians, high-net couples. Exactly the environment our family belongs in." Serena blinked. "That's thoughtful, but Jordan and I were thinking about something a little smaller." Diane looked up from her binder with a tiny smile that wasn't a smile. "Small weddings photograph poorly." Serena frowned. "I'm not worried about photos." "You should be," Diane replied. "This family has a public image. These things matter." Serena opened her mouth to respond, but Jordan rested a hand on her knee, a gentle warning. His eyes whispered, "We'll talk about it later." His mother's eyes whispered, "No, you won't." So Serena swallowed the irritation burning her throat. The next few weeks became a tornado of decisions, except they weren't Serena's decisions. They were Diane's. Diane chose the venue. Diane chose the florist. Diane chose the menu because your palate is too simple for seafood towers. Diane even revised the guest list to include people Serena had never met. Business associates, golf friends, important connections. Serena tried to push back once, choosing a modest cake design she loved. Diane dismissed it with a wave. That looks homemade. We are not hosting a bake sale. Jordan tried to mediate, but he did it softly, timidly. The kind of soft that cracked as soon as Diane raised her voice. When Serena complained to him privately, he kissed her forehead, held her tight, and whispered, "She's just excited. She finally feels like she's gaining a daughter." But Serena knew better. She wasn't being gained. She was being managed. One afternoon, after a long day of teaching, Serena arrived at the venue Diane had insisted on touring. The sterling, all marble arches and gold trim, screaming wealth in every corner, it intimidated her from the moment she walked in. Inside the ballroom, Diane was already talking with the coordinator like she owned the building. "There you are," Diane said as Serena approached. "We were just going over the financial logistics." Serena frowned. "Financial?" Diane turned a page in her binder. "Yes. You'll be covering the ceremony decor, the initial deposit, and the photographer. Jordan's father and I will handle the reception hall and catering." Serena blinked. "I never said I—" "You make a modest income, dear," Diane said sweetly. "Paying your portion shows commitment." Serena felt heat rise in her cheeks. She wasn't ashamed of her income. She worked hard. She was proud of every dollar she earned. But the condescension in Diane's tone felt like a slap she hadn't received yet. "I thought Jordan and I were going to budget together," she said carefully. Diane placed a hand on Serena's arm, gentle, cold, unnecessary. "I know what's best for our son, and trust me, he needs someone financially stable beside him. It's important for a lasting marriage." Serena froze. Someone financially stable. She meant the house. She meant the deed. She'd been circling the topic for months, each comment a needle, each question a thread. Now the pattern was becoming visible. That evening, Serena told Jordan everything. The comment about her income, the pressure, the assumptions. He rubbed his jaw, frustrated. "I'll talk to her." But when he did, Serena overheard Diane's response through the cracked door of the study. "You can't marry her without protection, Jordan. She owns property. That carries leverage. What happens if things go wrong?" "Things go wrong." Serena stepped back silently, heart pounding. Jordan defended her, but weakly. "I love her, Mum. That's all that matters." "No," Diane snapped. "Assets matter. Assets always matter." Serena closed her eyes, trying to push down the instinct screaming inside her. But then, a week before the wedding, she heard something worse. Diane standing in the hallway with a cousin, whispering harshly, "Once he's on that deed, everything will fall into place." That phrase sat heavy in Serena's stomach, sour and dangerous. Not once they're married. Not once they start a life. Not even once we welcome her. Once, he's on that deed. The wedding wasn't the plan. Her house was. Everything Diane touched, the venue, the guest list, the finances, rotated around the quiet, unspoken goal of tying Serena's hard-earned home to the Walker name. And the more Diane tightened her grip, the more Serena felt something slipping underneath her feet. She just didn't know what, not yet, but the cracks were growing. And the real disaster was still waiting on the horizon, disguised behind flowers and champagne. The week before the wedding felt like walking through honey, slow, sticky, pulling Serena down with every step. She tried to focus on the small joys, the dress fitting, the final dance rehearsal, the excitement of her students when she told them she was getting married, but even those moments were dimmed by the constant unseen weight of Diane's presence. On Thursday afternoon, Serena came home to find a glossy white box sitting on her porch. No note, no return address, just her name written in perfect cursive letters across the top. She didn't need to open it to know who it came from. Diane somehow made even cardboard feel condescending. Serena carried it inside, set it on the table, and stared at it for a full minute before lifting the lid. Tissue paper rustled softly, exposing a folded cream envelope tied with a gold ribbon. Inside the envelope was a card, a gift for our future, Diane. Serena frowned and reached deeper into the box. Her fingers touched paper, thick, official, and bound with a metal clip. She froze, then pulled it out. Deed documents. Not a copy. New paperwork, freshly printed, her house, her address, her loan number, her parcel ID, and beside her own name, a blank line. Under it, Jordan Walker. Her stomach dropped. Serena flipped through the pages, hands trembling. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a discussion. It was a transfer request. A legal form engineered to add Jordan to her deed before the wedding. The gift wasn't a gesture. It was a demand. Before Serena could process the violation of it all, her front door opened. Jordan stepped inside. He still had a key from the nights she let him in late after work. "Hey," he said softly, smiling, completely unaware of the storm he'd just walked into. "Thought I'd stop by and, oh." His smile faded when he saw the documents. His shoulders tensed. He swallowed, then looked anywhere except her eyes. "Please tell me you didn't know about this," Serena said quietly. Jordan rubbed the back of his neck. "I knew she was putting something together, but I didn't know she'd send it to you like that." "Like that?" Serena repeated, her voice cracking with disbelief. "Jordan, this isn't a bouquet. This is my house, my life." He stepped toward her slowly. "Babe, you know my mum." "Stop," she whispered. "This isn't about your mum. This is about you. Did you ask her to do this?" "No." "I swear I didn't." "But you didn't stop her," Serena said. "You knew she was planning something. You knew she kept asking about the house. And you didn't stop her." Jordan's jaw tightened. "It's just paperwork. It doesn't change anything between us." "It changes everything," Serena said, her voice breaking. "You want ownership of something I built alone." Jordan exhaled sharply. "It's not about ownership, Serena. It's about partnership. Marriage means sharing." "Marriage means trust," Serena replied. "You don't share something by taking it." His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't know what to say. Or he did, but none of it was good. Serena placed the papers on the table gently, like they were a bomb she was afraid would go off again. "I'm not signing them," she said. Jordan's eyes flickered. Relief, disappointment, fear. She couldn't read him anymore. He only said, "We'll talk about it later." Not like this. But they didn't talk about it later. Because later came too fast. 2 days before the wedding, Diane showed up unannounced. She entered Serena's home like she owned the deed already, wearing a tailored cream suit and a polite smile painted on like makeup. "Serena, dear," Diane began, sliding into the kitchen like a ghost. "I assume you've looked over the documents." Serena folded her arms. "I have. And I'm not signing them." Diane blinked slowly, as if Serena were a child refusing vegetables. "This isn't optional." Serena stiffened. "It absolutely is." "No," Diane said, voice tightening. "It isn't. You are marrying my son. A marriage is a merger. Assets matter." Serena felt heat surge in her chest. "This is my home. You don't get to order me to give any part of it away." Diane smiled, that thin, cruel smile that always felt like a blade. "You're very emotional, I understand. Wedding stress." "This has nothing to do with stress," Serena snapped. "It's about boundaries, and you have none." Jordan walked in from outside at that exact moment, pausing when he saw the tension hanging between them. "Mum, what are you doing here?" he asked. Diane turned to him, instantly softening. "Fixing something your fiancé doesn't understand." Serena's heart thudded. "Don't twist this." Diane's eyes hardened. "Sign the deed, Serena, tonight, or don't bother walking down the aisle." Jordan froze. Serena stared at Diane in stunned silence. "You wouldn't," she whispered. Diane stepped closer, lowering her voice like the threat was a secret between them. "You think I will allow my son to marry a woman who holds power over him? Over his future? Over our family assets? Over what rightfully belongs to us?" Serena blinked in disbelief. "It doesn't belong to you." A beat of silence pulsed through the room, then Diane smiled. Wide, fake, sweet. "Oh dear," she whispered. "It will." Serena felt chills crawl across her spine. Jordan looked torn, eyes darting between them like a man watching the fuse burn on a stick of dynamite he didn't know how to defuse. Serena took a deep, trembling breath. I'm not signing, she repeated. Diane's face shifted, not to anger, but something colder, something calculating. She adjusted her purse strap and nodded once. Then you leave me no choice. The walked past Jordan, brushed his shoulder, and whispered something Serena barely caught. Fix her. Jordan didn't move as his mother walked out the front door, closing it gently behind her, like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of the living room. Serena watched the door. Jordan watched Serena, and somewhere in the quiet, Serena realized this wasn't a disagreement anymore. It was a battle, and the wedding was about to be the battlefield. The next morning, Serena woke with a knot in her stomach, the kind that felt like it had been forming for months, but only now had a name. She tried to shake it off by cleaning, by cooking, by folding laundry she'd already folded. Distraction didn't help. The silence in her house felt unfamiliar, like someone had moved the furniture when she wasn't looking. By afternoon, the weight became too much to ignore. She needed answers, real ones, not the soft half-truths Jordan kept offering. So she drove to his condo unannounced. When Jordan opened the door, he looked startled, then relieved. Then instantly anxious, like he already knew why she was there. Serena, he breathed, stepping aside. Come in. She didn't sit. She didn't take off her coat. She stood in the middle of the living room, trying to steady her voice. We need to talk. He rubbed his face, exasperated. Not again. Yes. Again, she said sharply. Your mother threatened to call off the wedding because I won't sign my house over. I need to understand why she cares this much. Jordan exhaled heavily and walked to the window, staring out like the city might offer a solution. Cars moved below, tiny and distant, unaware of the storm brewing above them. It's not what you think, he said quietly. Then tell me what it is. He didn't turn around. Things have been tight, for me, for the business. Serena felt her pulse quicken. What business? My company, he said, voice barely above a whisper. The expansion, it didn't go the way I wanted. Serena's throat tightened. Jordan, what do you mean tight? He ran a hand through his hair, shoulders slumping. We're in debt, Serena, heavy debt. Investors pulled out. There are lawsuits. I've been trying to fix it, but her heart dropped. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to worry, he said, finally facing her. His eyes were glassy, pleading. I didn't want you to think I was with you for your money. The irony stung so deeply she felt it in her bones. Serena swallowed hard. Is that why your mother wants your name on my deed? To use my house as collateral? I never asked her to do that, he insisted. But she thinks, she believes, having my name on something stable could help me negotiate better terms. It could look good to creditors. It would show financial strength. Serena stared at him, really stared. The man she thought she loved, the man she thought she understood. You want to use my home, she whispered. Not our home, my home. No, Jordan protested, not like that. I'm not trying to take anything from you. But your mother is, Serena said, and she's doing it because she thinks you'll let her. Jordan flinched like she'd hit him. That's not fair. It's honest, Serena replied. I bought that house by myself. I built everything by myself. And your mother is trying to make me hand over the only thing that's ever been secure in my life, just to patch a hole in yours. Jordan stepped toward her, desperation soaking through his voice. I love you. I'm not using you, but things are falling apart, Serena. My company, my name, half the people at the wedding think I'm successful, and I'm drowning. I just didn't want to lose you too. Serena shook her head slowly. You didn't lose me because of your debt. You're losing me because you hid it. She blinked back tears. And because you let your mother weaponize my house. Jordan's voice cracked. I didn't let her. You didn't stop her, Serena whispered. Bod. Silence swelled between them, thick and choking. After a long moment, Jordan looked down at his hands. I was going to tell you. After the wedding. After I changed the deed, she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Serena felt something crack inside her. Not loud, but deep. The kind of crack that doesn't break instantly, but guarantees the structure won't last. She stepped back. Jordan reached out, but she didn't take his hand. She couldn't. Serena, please, don't give up on us. She swallowed hard. I'm not giving up. I'm waking up. The room felt colder suddenly, the walls taller, Jordan smaller. Serena walked toward the door, but before she reached it, Jordan said something that made her stop. My mother, she's not just trying to protect me, she's trying to protect herself. Serena froze. Jordan's voice dropped to a hollow whisper. Her name, it's tangled in the debt too. That's why she's panicking. Serena turned slowly. So she wants security. From me. Jordan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Serena stepped outside into the cool evening air, her breath unsteady. Diane wasn't pressuring her out of love, or tradition, or family unity. She was doing it because the walkers were sinking. And Serena was the life raft. The problem was, they didn't ask to hold on to her. They planned to climb in and tip her over, and the wedding was only 2 days away. The morning of the wedding felt wrong the moment Serena opened her eyes. She expected excitement, butterflies, joy. Instead, her chest felt heavy, like something was pressing down on her ribs, warning her. She moved through the motions anyway. Shower, hair appointment, makeup, dress. Her bridesmaids fluttered around her like soft wings, trying to keep the energy light. They laughed, played music, passed mimosas, called her beautiful, and she smiled back as best she could. But every time she caught her reflection, she saw someone else staring back. Someone afraid, someone unsure, someone who knew she was walking toward something she didn't fully trust anymore. Girl, you okay? Her maid of honor, Tasha, finally asked, pausing her lip gloss mid-swipe. Serena forced a breath. Yeah, just nerves. Tasha gave her a long look, the kind that sees through everything. Nah, this ain't nerves. This is something else. Serena looked away. She couldn't say it. Not now, not on this day. So she lied with a weak smile. I'm fine. But she wasn't. The Sterling Hotel in Buckhead glowed with chandeliers and polished marble. Guests filled the lobby in sleek tuxes and shimmering gowns, laughing and praising the decor. It looked like a dream wedding. Too perfect. Too curated, too much like Diane's vision. Serena stiffened when she saw Diane across the room. The older woman wore a pale gold gown, her hair pulled into a smooth chignon, pearls resting elegantly along her collarbone. She looked like the mother of a prince, not a groom. When their eyes met, Diane smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was victorious. Serena looked away quickly. Inside the bridal suite, the coordinator handed Serena her bouquet. Just then, Serena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. Check the deed, the back page. You missed something. Her blood ran cold. She stared at the message, hands trembling. Before she could open her bag and search for the document, the coordinator knocked. Everyone ready? Ceremony starts in 3. Tasha squeezed Serena's hand before she could think too deeply. Let's go, bride. Serena swallowed the rising panic and followed. The ceremony room was breathtaking. Rows of white chairs, soft golden lighting, fresh flowers lining the aisle. A string quartet playing softly. Everything should have made her heart soar, but instead it tightened like a fist. As Serena walked down the aisle, Jordan smiled at her, a soft, shaky smile that looked more frightened than joyful. His eyes kept darting toward the entrance, toward his mother, toward the officiant, like he was waiting for something to explode. Serena tried to focus on his face, trying to remember why she said yes in the first place, trying to push aside the whisper that kept asking, why did someone text her about the deed? What did she miss? What was Diane hiding? But before she could unravel those thoughts, it was over. Vows exchanged, rings placed. A kiss that felt too light to be real, applause she barely heard, and then they were announced husband and wife, a title Serena wasn't sure she was ready for anymore. The wedding dinner was held in a grand ballroom, as glowing and elaborate as everything else. Guests cheered as Serena and Jordan entered, the chandeliers sparkled, the silverware shone, everything glimmered with expensive happiness. But beneath it was something darker, a current of tension humming through every moment, every glance. Jordan barely ate. Diane kept checking her watch. Serena's phone buzzed twice more, but she didn't dare look. Then, right after Serena sat down, a hand touched her shoulder. "Diane." "Come with me," she said softly, too softly. Serena hesitated. "Why?" "Sign the deed," Diane whispered, eyes sharp. "And we end all this tension." Serena's throat tightened. "I told you, I'm not signing." Diane's smile didn't falter. "You will. Or this wedding ends tonight." Jordan stood abruptly, noticing the shift. "Mum, stop." Diane ignored him. Her hand tightened on Serena's shoulder. "Do not embarrass us," she murmured. "You owe this family loyalty now." "I don't owe you my home," Serena shot back. The room seemed to hold its breath. Diane's face flickered, from smug to furious to something cold and dangerous. She reached into her clutch and pulled out the deed Serena thought she'd lost in her bag. A fresh copy, signed by an attorney, folded so Serena couldn't see the back page. "Sign it," Diane said. "Now." Serena stood, voice steady. "I'm not signing anything today, not for you." The air turned electric. Jordan whispered her name, reaching for her arm, but Serena stepped away. This was her house, her boundaries, her line in the sand, and then Diane's hand moved so fast Serena barely saw it. The slap cracked across the ballroom like a gunshot. Gasps, a dropped fork, a cry from someone in the back. The quartet froze mid-note. Serena staggered, gripping the edge of the table as her cheek burned. Her eyes filled with tears, not from the pain, but from the humiliation. Jordan looked horrified. Guests whispered, phones rose, cameras recorded, and in the chaos Serena caught something on the deed that slipped to the floor. A name she didn't expect. Not Jordan's, someone else's, someone who shouldn't have been involved at all. Her heart pounded. Whatever she'd missed, whatever someone warned her about, it was big, bigger than the slap, bigger than the wedding, bigger than anything she'd imagined. And now the cracks were spreading in the open, right in front of everyone. The ballroom buzzed with shock, but for Serena the world had narrowed to the piece of paper trembling on the floor. The deed lay open, pages crumpled, but the section she hadn't noticed before, the one she'd been warned about, stared back at her like a confession. Under the bold line where Jordan Walker should have been added, sat another printed name. Frederick Walker Jordan's father. A man Serena barely knew. A man who hadn't spoken 10 sentences to her since she met him. A man who ran the family's business empire like a private kingdom. Her breath caught in her throat. Why was his name on her deed? She bent slowly, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the cameras, ignoring the burning in her cheek. Her fingers shook as she pulled the page closer, reading the fine print. One sentence made her vision blur. Secondary signer authorized for collateral purposes. Collateral. Her house wasn't a wedding gift. It was a bargaining chip, a tool, a shield, a property the Walkers wanted under their control, not because of tradition, but because something in their empire was cracking. She swallowed hard, chest tightening. Diane lunged forward, trying to snatch the paperwork before Serena could read more, but Jordan grabbed his mother's wrist mid-reach. "Mom, enough." The room gasped again. Even Diane seemed stunned that her son had stopped her. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "Jordan, do not make a scene." "A scene?" Serena whispered, stepping back. "You slapped me in front of everyone." Diane turned to her, eyes sharp as glass. "And you gave me no choice." "No choice?" Serena repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Because I won't hand over my home to your husband." Gasps rippled through the room. Someone covered their mouth. Someone else whispered, "Her husband?" Jordan went pale. "Serena," he said softly, "let's talk about this in private." "No," Serena answered firmly, "not anymore." For the first time since she'd met him, Jordan didn't try to reach for her. He just stood there, frozen, as though he couldn't decide who he needed to protect. Serena held up the page, her hand shaking. "You wanted your father's name on my house. Why? What does he need my home for?" Diane stiffened, her expression shifting so fast it almost broke. Anger, fear, calculation. Back to anger. "He is the head of this family," Diane said. "Everything we do is for stability. For legacy. For hiding something." Serena cut in. Silence fell. Guests leaned forward. Phones zoomed in. Even the quartet quietly lowered their bows. Jordan stepped closer, voice low. "Serena, please." She looked at him, but his eyes didn't hold answers. Just regret. Deep, silent regret. "Jordan," she whispered, "do you even know what this paperwork is for?" He hesitated, and that hesitation told her everything. He didn't know. Diane's voice cracked like a whip. "He doesn't need to know. I protect this family." "Protect," Serena whispered. "Or control?" Diane didn't flinch. "Control builds empires." Serena felt her pulse hammer in her throat. Pieces clicked into place, the pressure, the obsession with her deed, the financial fear Jordan tried to hide, the whispers about lawsuits. The panic Diane wrapped in pearls and polite smiles. "Your business is collapsing," Serena said softly. Jordan closed his eyes. Diane's mask slipped. Just for a second, but it slipped. "Your husband," Serena continued, "is drowning in debt. That's why you wanted Jordan married to someone with assets. Someone who could cover the damage. Someone you thought wouldn't ask questions." Serena's voice shook with realization. "You never wanted me in this family. You wanted my house." Diane stepped forward, eyes blazing. "You walked into our lives with a property in your name. You think that doesn't change the calculations? Jordan needed stability. We needed leverage. You were supposed to be grateful we allowed this marriage." Serena blinked as if struck again, this time deeper than any slap. "Allowed, allowed, allowed." The word echoed like a wound. Jordan reached for Serena then, but she stepped back like his touch burned. "You knew," she whispered. "Maybe not all of it, but you knew enough." His lips parted. No words came out. Serena turned the paper around for the entire room to see. Frederick Walker, collateral, signatures left blank, waiting for her pen. A trap disguised as tradition, a partnership disguised as marriage, a woman disguised as property. Tears filled her eyes, hot and blinding, not from hurt, but fury. "This wedding," she breathed, "was never about love for your family. It was about saving yourselves." Diane straightened, trying to reclaim control. "Serena, be reasonable." "No," Serena said, her voice steady and cold. "I've been reasonable long enough." She let the deed fall to the floor, paper fluttering like a broken confession. The ballroom pulsed with tension. Guests watched, phones recorded, Jordan stood helpless, and Serena realized something with bone-deep clarity. This wasn't the moment her marriage cracked. It was the moment she finally saw the truth. She was never meant to be a wife in this family. She was meant to be an asset. And now that she knew the truth, the Walkers were going to panic, hard, because assets that speak up break the system. And Serena Morris had just broken theirs in front of everyone. The ballroom felt like it had tilted sideways. Serena could barely hear the music anymore, could barely feel the ground beneath her heels, but she could feel every pair of eyes, wide, stunned, hungry, watching her unravel the Walker's secret in real time. Diane's breath grew sharp, shallow, furious. "You ungrateful girl," she whispered. Stepping closer, "You have no idea what you're talking about." Serena held her stare. "I know exactly what I'm talking about." The entire room seemed to inhale at once. Diane's jaw clenched, her neck pulsing. Then she turned, her voice rising, as if speaking to the audience instead of Serena. "She is confused, emotional, overwhelmed. We will not continue this spectacle." She gestured harshly to the coordinator. "Turn off the cameras." But the coordinator stayed frozen. Guests were still recording, phones raised like glowing witnesses. Serena didn't move. Her cheek still throbbed from Diane's slap earlier, the heat of it burning through the air between them. But her voice came out steady. "You slapped me because I said no, because I wouldn't sign away the only security I've ever had. And now the truth is out." Jordan stepped forward finally, gripping the back of a chair like he needed help standing. "Mum, stop, please." Diane pointed at him sharply. "Do not defend her, not today." Jordan flinched. Serena saw it, saw him shrink again, saw him fold into the shape his mother insisted he take, saw him become the boy she'd created, not the man Serena thought she loved. That was the breaking point. Serena straightened her shoulders. "Is he even involved in this decision, Diane? Or was he just the pretty face you needed to access my house?" The room erupted in a low, rippling gasp. Diane's face reddened, not from shame, but fury. "You miserable!" Before she could finish, Jordan moved between them, panic flooding his expression. "Stop!" he shouted, voice cracking. But his interruption came too late. Way too late. Frederick Walker, the man whose name lay hidden on the back page of the deed, stepped into the circle of tension like a judge evaluating a crime scene. He wore a stiff navy suit, eyes dark with disapproval, jaw set like concrete. He didn't look at Serena. He looked at Diane. "You assured me this would go smoothly," he said coldly. A fresh wave of murmurs spread across the room. Serena felt her stomach twist. Frederick didn't deny the plan, he didn't apologize, he didn't even pretend. He simply blamed Diane for the failure. Jordan grabbed his father's arm. "Dad, what is going on? Why is your name on the deed paperwork?" Frederick didn't flinch. "You don't need to concern yourself with that." Serena stared at him in disbelief. "You were going to use my house for collateral." "Without even telling me." Frederick finally turned his eyes on her, and the coldness in them made her heart drop. "You married into a family with expectations," he said. "Every Walker contributes. Every asset serves a purpose. That is how we maintain our standing." Serena took a step back, breath catching. "I'm not an asset." Frederick lifted his chin. "Everything and everyone becomes one, eventually." Jordan looked sick. Serena felt something crack open in her chest. Not heartbreak, something fiercer. "You might control your family," she said softly. "But you will never control me." Her voice carried, clear, sharp, electric, through the ballroom that had become a stage. Diane lunged forward, eyes blazing. "You don't speak to him like that." And then she slapped Serena again, harder, faster, like she wanted to erase the words from Serena's mouth. The sound echoed off the marble walls. This time, Jordan shouted, grabbing his mother's arm violently, "Mom, stop!" The guests stood. Someone cried. Someone yelled, "She hit her again!" Phones zoomed in. Lights flashed. The room was chaos. Serena staggered, but didn't fall. Her cheek burned. Tears pricked her eyes, but her spine stayed straight. She lifted her head slowly, painfully, and looked Diane dead in the eyes. And the entire ballroom watched the moment Serena Morris's fear finally turned into fire. "You want to destroy me," Serena whispered, voice trembling yet strong. "But you don't realize. You already lost." Diane froze. Jordan froze. Frederick froze. Because the room, the entire wedding, had turned against them. Tasha rushed to Serena's side, pulling her into a fierce embrace. Bridesmaids circled her. A few guests stepped between her and Diane. Jordan reached for Serena, face pale, but Tasha blocked him. "No," she snapped. "You don't get to touch her." Serena stepped back from the circle of bridesmaids and turned toward the table where the deed lay scattered across the marble floor. She lifted the paper with Frederick's name on it, crumpled it slowly in her fist, and let the scraps fall like ashes. Gasps filled the air. Jordan whispered her name, voice breaking apart. "Serena, please." But she didn't look at him. Not anymore, because in that moment, that electric, heartbreaking, humiliating moment, Serena realized she wasn't the bride of this wedding. She was the target, and this wasn't a marriage. It was a trap, the kind that ends in disaster. And she wasn't stepping into disaster quietly. Not tonight, not ever. But the worst part wasn't Diane's slap, or Frederick's cold ambition, or Jordan's silence. The worst part was something Serena didn't see yet. Something moving in the background, something hidden behind nervous glances and whispered phone calls. Someone else knew about the deed. Someone else who wasn't on the Walker's side. And that person was just about to step out of the shadows. The ballroom was trembling with energy, not physically but emotionally, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Serena could feel it. The crowd wasn't just watching, they were choosing sides. And for the first time tonight, the Walkers could feel the shift. Diane's hand hovered in the air, still curled from the slap she'd delivered. Frederick's jaw tightened. Jordan looked trapped, his eyes glossy with panic, but then a soft voice rose over the murmurs. "Serena, wait." It was Alyssa, one of Jordan's cousins, a woman Serena barely knew, quiet and reserved, the type who blended into the edges of family gatherings. She stood near the back of the room, clutching something to her chest, papers, folded, creased, handled too many times. Every head turned toward her. Diane stiffened. "Alyssa, sit down, this is not your place." But Alyssa didn't move. She stepped forward instead, hands shaking, her voice quivered, but her words didn't. "It is my place. I should have said something earlier." Jordan frowned. "Alyssa, what are you talking about?" Alyssa swallowed hard, looked directly at Serena and said, "He wasn't going to stay with you." The words hit Serena like a cold slap. The room went dead silent, so quiet you could hear the chandeliers humming. Serena blinked. "What?" Alyssa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Serena. I didn't want to tell you tonight. But you deserve the truth." She held out the folded papers. "I found this in my mother's office. It's from a meeting they had about you." Diane whipped around. "Alyssa!" Her voice cracked like a whip. "Not another word." But Alyssa pushed on, hands trembling as she unfolded the documents. Serena didn't breathe. Jordan whispered harshly, "Alyssa, stop." But she didn't. "It's an outline," Alyssa explained. "A plan, a timeline, a strategy." She turned the papers around for Serena to see. The top was labeled in bold, "Walker Family Asset Protection Timeline," and beneath it, Phase 3, Post-Marriage Property Transfer, Phase 4, Legal Separation Initiated, Phase 5, Retained Property, Allocation. Serena's entire body went numb. She forced her voice through the numbness. "What does this mean?" Alyssa's eyes met hers, tired, apologetic, honest. "They plan to convince you to add Jordan to the deed, then, months later, push for separation so they could keep the property." The room imploded into gasps. Jordan shot forward, eyes blazing. "No, Alyssa, that's not—" But Alyssa shook her head. "You didn't know, Jordan. This was your mother, your father, the family lawyer. They met without you. They had meetings at the office. They called the house. I overheard everything." She turned to Serena again, tears falling now. "They wanted the house. They wanted stability to save the company. They planned to take everything you worked for." Serena felt her knees weaken. A bridesmaid grabbed her arm before she swayed. Jordan turned toward Diane, horror dawning. "Mom, tell me she's lying." Diane opened her mouth, then closed it. Her silence was the answer. Jordan recoiled like he'd been stabbed. "Mom?" His voice broke. "Mom, what did you do?" Frederick stepped forward, voice ice cold. "This was necessary." Jordan stumbled back. "Necessary? To ruin her, to ruin us?" Serena's chest tightened with devastation and rage. She looked between them, the family who barely spoke to her without judgment, who pretended to welcome her, who hid knives behind every smile. Her voice came out hollow. "You were going to take my home, then dispose of me." Frederick didn't blink. "You would have been compensated." Compensated, like she was a business expense. The crowd gasped. Someone yelled, "This is insane." Someone else cursed under their breath. The Walkers were unraveling in public, their secrets spilling across the marble floor like broken glass. Jordan pressed his hands to his temples, shaking his head. "I didn't know. I swear to God, Serena, I didn't know." Serena believed him, but it didn't matter. The betrayal wasn't his alone. It was the system he came from, the family he came from, the legacy he didn't know how to fight. Serena inhaled shakily. This was too much, too deep, too calculated. She looked at Alyssa, voice trembling. "Why tell me now?" Alyssa stepped closer, guilt etched into her face. "Because I knew it was wrong, and because when she slapped you," Alyssa's voice cracked. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore." Diane's voice erupted behind her. "You foolish girl!" But before she could lunge, Frederick grabbed her arm, eyes blazing. "Enough!" Even he knew the damage was already done. Serena stared at the timeline again. The cold, printed dates, the legal phrasing, the insult of it all. Phase 3, Phase 4, Phase 5. She swallowed hard. Her entire future had been mapped out and weaponized. Not by her husband, but by the people who raised him. The dream wedding was a heist. The marriage was a smokescreen. The Walkers weren't building a family, they were executing a plan. Serena folded the papers slowly, her hands trembling, and when she lifted her head, her voice was steel. "You were never planning to keep me," she whispered. "You just wanted what I owned." The room fell silent again, but the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like the moment before a final blow, a blow none of them saw coming because another truth, one even darker, was still waiting in the shadows, waiting for its turn to tear the night apart. The air inside the ballroom had thickened so much it felt hard to breathe. Guests whispered to each other in frantic, broken sentences. Phones hovered mid-air, recording every second like this was a crime scene unraveling in slow motion. Serena held Alyssa's papers in her trembling hand. Jordan stood a few feet away, shell-shocked, repeating the same quiet words under his breath. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." But Serena wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at Frederick Walker, the man who'd casually admitted he would have compensated her for losing her home. The man who believed legacy mattered more than dignity. The man whose name had been hidden on her deed like a parasite in the dark. He watched her too, calm, almost eerily composed, like the chaos didn't touch him, like the entire ballroom wasn't collapsing around them. Serena stepped forward. "Why is your name on the paperwork, Frederick?" He didn't blink. "It was a strategic decision." Diane tried to cut in. "Serena, you don't understand." "No." Serena's voice sliced through her words. "Let him answer." Frederick studied her, and for the first time that evening, something in his expression cracked. Not guilt, not shame, fear. It was fast, a flicker across his eyes, but Serena caught it, and Alyssa caught it too. She stepped closer, voice trembling but determined. "Tell her, Uncle Frederick. Tell her what you told my mum." Diane whipped toward Alyssa, panic lacing her voice. "Enough! You don't know what you're saying." But Frederick snapped, "Diane, stop." Diane fell silent instantly. Serena felt her chest tighten, whatever was coming next. It wasn't small. Frederick drew in a long breath. "The family business is under federal review," he said flatly, "for accounting discrepancies." Accounting discrepancies. The euphemism tasted rotten. Serena felt the guests lean in, the entire room tightening like a drum. Jordan's eyes widened. "Dad, what?" Frederick spoke each word like he was peeling off armor. It wasn't just Jordan's expansion that failed. Several investments collapsed. The IRS opened an inquiry, and if they dig too deeply, his jaw clenched. They might start seizing assets. A breathless hush swept the ballroom. Seizing assets, a phrase heavy enough to knock the air from Serena's lungs. "Oh my God," Jordan whispered, but Frederick wasn't finished. He turned, facing Serena fully now. "Your home is one of the few untangled, clean properties we could have shifted into our networks without raising suspicion." Serena's stomach twisted so violently she nearly doubled over. "You were going to hide your fraud," she breathed, "by tying my house to your name." He didn't deny it. Diane stepped in then, voice trembling with desperation. "We did what we had to do to keep our family standing." Serena stared at her. "You were willing to sacrifice me." Frederick's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You were protected. We would have returned the property to you once things settled." A laugh escaped Serena, bitter, disbelieving. "You don't get to cage someone and call it protection." Frederick's expression hardened again. "You are overreacting." Serena felt something cold and furious settle inside her. "Overreacting?" she whispered. "You used my love for your son to pull me into a federal crime scene." Jordan finally moved, stepping between his father and Serena, his voice shaking. "Dad, this is insane. This is illegal." "It's survival," Frederick snapped. "No," Jordan said, tears forming. "It's manipulation." Frederick scoffed. "You were never built for leadership, Jordan. You're too emotional, too soft." Jordan flinched, and then another voice spoke from the far side of the room. "What he isn't telling you is that Diane signed documents behind your back too, Jordan." Everyone turned. A tall man in a charcoal suit walked forward, the Walkers' own corporate attorney, Mr. Braxton. Serena recognized him from the engagement party. He'd shaken her hand without meeting her eyes. Now he looked nervous, afraid even. But determined. Jordan stiffened. "What documents?" Braxton swallowed. Your mother authorized the transfer of several assets in your name without informing you. Some of them are linked to the same accounts under review. Jordan stared at his mother, betrayal spreading across his face like wildfire. Mum, did you sign things in my name? Diane froze, caught, exposed, terrified. Jordan, it was for your protection. You forged my signature, he whispered, stepping back as if the words were poison. You dragged me into this mess? Into the investigation? Serena felt a wave of sickening realization wash over her. This wasn't just Diane trying to control the marriage. This wasn't just Frederick trying to seize her home. This was a collapsing empire, clawing at anything, anyone, to stay afloat. A family willing to drown her to stay above water. Braxton lowered his gaze. I couldn't stay silent anymore, especially after what happened tonight. Someone had to say the truth out loud. Diane looked like the room was spinning. Frederick looked like he was ready to explode. Jordan looked shattered in a way Serena had never seen. And the entire wedding, the grand, expensive, flawless wedding, was now the stage of the Walkers' public unraveling. Serena wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the weight of the night press against her chest. She wasn't marrying a broken man. She was marrying into a sinking dynasty, one that had built its foundation on lies, one that expected her to be a shield, one that had planned to use her as a cover, one that would have gladly sacrificed her. And worst of all, the night still wasn't over. Because someone else had been watching her house. Someone else had touched her life without permission. Someone else had taken advantage of the chaos. Someone who wasn't a Walker. And they were about to make their move. The ballroom felt colder now, not because someone touched the thermostat, but because every lie, every hidden agenda, every secret was suddenly out in the open like shards of glass. Serena stood in the middle of it all, bruised cheek, trembling hands, heart thundering, yet somehow more grounded than she had been all night. She wasn't confused anymore. She wasn't unsure. She wasn't afraid. She knew exactly what she had married into, and exactly what she needed to walk away from. Tasha wrapped an arm around her. Girl, let's get you out of here. For a moment, Serena couldn't speak. She stared at Jordan, the man she had once imagined growing old with, standing there shattered between two worlds, his mother sobbing in a way that felt more frustrated than sorrowful, his father seething, jaw set like steel, their entire empire crumbling around them. Jordan stepped toward her, desperate. Serena, please, I didn't know. You have to believe me. I swear I didn't know. His voice cracked, but Serena didn't move. She looked at him, really looked, and saw two truths at once. He loved her. But he was trapped, and loving a trapped man only gets you trapped too. Jordan, she whispered, you should have stopped them the moment you had doubts. He swallowed hard. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you hid the truth. His face broke. Serena stepped back. She didn't yell. She didn't curse. She didn't cry. She simply let the weight of everything settle between them like a closed door. Tasha squeezed her hand. Let's go. They turned toward the exit, Serena's dress sweeping behind her like a quiet storm. Guests moved out of the way, some whispering, some shaking their heads, some recording the final walkout. Halfway to the doors, Serena paused when her phone vibrated again in her clutch. Another unknown number. Another message. You should check your house, now. Her heart dropped. Tasha frowned. What's wrong? Serena didn't answer. She pushed through the ballroom doors, her breath cold in the empty hallway. The drive home felt unreal. Streetlights blurred through her tears. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. Tasha followed behind in her own car, refusing to leave Serena alone. When Serena finally turned onto her street, her headlights caught something that made her stomach flip. Her front door was open. Wide open, swinging slightly in the night breeze. She slammed the car into park and jumped out, feet pounding the pavement. Serena, Tasha yelled, rushing up behind her. Wait! But Serena was already moving through the threshold of her house. The house she fought for, cried for, sacrificed for. The house that had become a target the moment she fell in love with the wrong family. Her living room lights were on, drawers were open, papers were scattered across the floor. She felt dizzy. Tasha, she whispered. Someone was here. Tasha grabbed her arm. Don't touch anything. Call 911. But Serena was frozen, eyes locked on one place, the built-in shelf near the window. The safe. Her safe. The one with the combination only she knew. It was open, not broken, not forced. Open, clean, empty. And the deed, the original deed to her house, was gone. Serena's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the edge of the shelf to steady herself. "No, no, no," she whispered. "I didn't move it. I didn't—" Her phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. She lifted it with trembling hands, feeling Tasha's grip tighten around her wrist. This message was shorter, colder. "You should have signed when you had the chance," Serena gasped, dropping the phone. Tasha stared at the screen, eyes wide with horror. "Serena, that wasn't Diane. That wasn't Frederick. That wasn't even Jordan." Serena's breath shook. Tasha whispered the only question left. "Then who the hell has your deed?" Serena looked around her ransacked house, the house she earned, the house she protected, the house they tried to use as leverage, and she felt something rise in her chest. Not fear, not panic, not helplessness. Fire, pure, unfiltered fire. "This isn't over," she whispered. Her voice was steady, sharp, cold. Tasha nodded, standing beside her like a soldier. "Damn right it's not." Serena lifted her phone from the floor, staring at the message again. Unknown number, unknown threat, unknown enemy. The walkers were dangerous. But someone else had just stepped into the war, someone hiding in the dark, someone watching, someone waiting. And the night her marriage fell apart was only the beginning.